Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. So we are nearly at the start of a new week. It's actually Sunday, so I'm just starting this video a little bit earlier. If you're new here, my name is Gemma and me and my fiance James run a business where we sell luxury and vintage items and we kind of share our sort of experience of building our online business. So I thought we could talk a little bit more about Vinted and the items that they prohibit you, or they're banned items, the things you're not allowed to sell on Vinted, because just looking online and things, there's actually quite a lot of ones that are very surprising, and obviously they can lead to your account being restricted or completely, permanently closed. Now, the reason I thought this would be quite good to talk about is because if you are part of the Vinted community, or if you see posts popping up online about it, I've noticed recently that there has been so many people's accounts that are being either restricted or completely, shut down and banned. And I don't know what it is. I felt like when we kind of first of all started, it wasn't so much of an issue. Obviously, if you were selling things that were clearly not allowed, like dangerous items and things, or like fake items. However, there seems to be a whole host of different reasons that people are getting their accounts restricted and banned. If you want to, hear a little bit more about people's experiences that I've kind of read about, make sure and check out my last video. But today I thought we'd talk specifically about the items that could get your account restricted. So this is just one of the reasons that you can maybe get your account restricted, just purely on the items. But as I said, there's a whole bunch of other things that you might end up doing by mistake that could then get your account flagged. So some of these to me aren't super surprising, just because I was kind of already aware of this. But one of the things is cosmetics. So I'm actually just looking at a little list here that I've got on the Vinted kind of website, and I think I did kind of mention this in a previous video, but any sort of opened makeup, partly used makeup, obviously well used makeup. Another one though that I didn't know, and I didn't mention this in the previous one, was hair products. So even though you're not putting it on your skin, opened hair products, even if it's just been opened, which I don't understand how they know if it's opened, because I don't know about you, but if you buy hair products in a shop, it's not sealed. So a lot of the time, if it's like a hair mask, sometimes they might have that little, when you take the lid off, they'll have this sort of foil lid on it. But I've definitely bought hair masks and conditioners and oils and things like that for your hair that don't have that little kind of foil seal over the top. So how they know if it's been opened or not is kind of, a little bit tricky. Again, that's something that, might be a bit of a risk if you try to sell it, because they might just think, oh well, we don't want to risk it. So yeah, hair products is one. As I said, it says opened hair products, but some things you can't tell if they've been opened, so that maybe be something that I would avoid. And then, as I said, obviously skincare, makeup, anything that you're putting on your skin. But the one that I think catches a lot of people out is perfume. So again, perfume technically gets put on your skin, but it's not something that you're kind of touching, it's a spray. So you would think that that would be fine, but opened perfume is not allowed. Again, most of the time it'll be, if it's brand new with tags, it'll be sealed in a box. However, a lot of the time when people get perfume, they have to open, especially if it's a gift, they would have to open it and smell it. And if they don't like it, then it's not it's not dangerous or anything. So that could be something to watch out for, is perfume that's obviously not in its original packaging in a sealed box. So another one, which I think is a bit obvious, is makeup accessories, as in makeup brushes, sponges and things like that, and applicators, so if they've been used. So again, I think if you're going to sell those kind of things, it would need to be like brand new with, in packaging and stuff like that. So yeah, but I think that's kind of obvious, because again, it's going on your skin and it could obviously be not super hygienic or safe if you're selling used items. So another one, which I think is quite obvious, and I'll need to double check if something related to this is going to be mentioned, but obviously underwear. So used underwear, or underwear that's not got the original tags, as in like packaging, like brand new with tags, is not allowed. Obviously that's a hygiene thing. However, I will need to have a look and see if that applies to swimwear, because to me, bikini bottoms and swimming trunks and things, very similar to underwear. And I'm curious if we're allowed to sell bikinis, because I'm pretty sure I've actually bought bikinis, or ones that were maybe brand new but they hadn't been worn or whatever like that, but they still didn't have the tags on them. But this, maybe, I don't know, maybe if you show, especially on like women's not underwear, bikinis, they have that hygiene strip, the sticky sticker on the bottoms, maybe as long as you show that, it's fine. But again, I'll need to look into that actually. I wonder if that actually comes up the more that I look. But yeah, definitely not, used underwear. What's a shame about this is that I think this obviously applies to like bras as well. So for women, like we know how expensive bras can be, and obviously bras are not exactly on, I suppose, a part of your body. It's the same as selling maybe like a top, a crop top or a sports bra or something. Yeah, because obviously those kind of things, especially if they maybe worn it once and you don't like the fit of it or something, or it doesn't fit, but you've taken the labels off, that's a little bit of a shame. Obviously some people might not want to buy, bras and things if they have, got the labels on them. However, I don't think it's quite the same as buying, say, underwear, obviously like pants and boxers and things like that. So another thing that you're not allowed to sell in Vinted is menstrual products. So obviously things like used, I would say, menstrual cups and discs and things, obviously again, hygiene thing. However, it says here that even if they're brand new in boxes, and maybe it is like pads or tampons and things, you're not allowed to sell that either. So I'm quite surprised at that, just because if it's brand new in a box and it's not been opened, you would think that would be fine. So another one that's a bit surprising is, it says here, is wax melts, fragrances, and then certain chemical products. So I think I mentioned that in the previous one, was where things like DIY chemicals, so things like paints, varnishes, stains, all that kind of stuff. I know you're not allowed to sell that. However, it says here that some wax melts, fragrances, and certain chemical products, cleaning chemicals, detergents, and then fragrance related products are not allowed either, which I'm really surprised at. It doesn't say candles though, so that's good. But then you'd think that candles and wax melts would be similar. So that's probably something to keep an eye out for if you do sell any of those things. So another one, which is a bit random, is emergency service uniforms and police uniforms. So it says even if they're genuine, uniforms, badges, and related emergency services items are not allowed. So I think that's similar to that I mentioned in the last video about the sort of delivery company things. So like I've actually seen a Deliveroo bag up for sale, and you weren't allowed to sell that. So I suppose that falls under that kind of category. So really, as I say, very random, really interesting. So another item that I actually seen that wasn't allowed was actually a post on Facebook I read, and it was such a shame. I wish I had it, I wish I'd saved the post. So it was a big massive long spiel of everything that she'd been banned for. So basically she'd listed a necklace, but in our picture, the necklace that she showed, she actually was wearing a corset top, right? Now, she wasn't banned for the necklace. She was banned because in her picture that was showing the necklace, she was wearing a prohibited item. And at first she obviously didn't realise what this was, and it turned out it was the corset. So I didn't think that, I wouldn't have thought that you wouldn't be allowed to sell corsets, because obviously they're, clothing item, really fashionable, really popular. So supposedly you're not allowed to sell corsets on Vinted, that itself. So that's something to keep an eye out for. But the reason I sort of brought it up is that she got flagged for having a prohibited item in her image, even though they acknowledged that it wasn't that item she was trying to sell, but because she had it as an accessory item in an image, that's why she got her account flagged. And yeah, so she went on and obviously spoke about that. Then she said that she'd listed brand new underwear in the packaging. It had been flagged from them saying that they thought it was used. So that's one of the things to keep an eye out for, is that there's actually quite a few items that I think Vinted do get wrong quite a lot. So things that are meant to be, so I think it comes under anything that they would rather you sell brand new with tags if they think it's been used. So I would probably mention, as I say, underwear, things like cosmetic accessories, perfumes. Those are the ones that I'm seeing coming up quite a lot as being mistakenly flagged by Vinted, because obviously whatever bots or whatever they're using is thinking they're being used, and they're trying to sell them used. So anyway, back to this story, this person had been flagged for selling supposedly used underwear. She then appealed it because she had her account restricted for so many days or something. She appealed it and said, it's not used, I can show you, obviously you've got all the pictures of the packaging, the labels, etc. They then acknowledged that they made a mistake, and reinstated her account. And then I think it was after that she then got flagged for posting the picture of the necklace with the corset, and all that kind of happened. Then she went to relist more more new underwear, and her account got flagged again. And then I think they said this time that because it had been like the second time that or the third time she'd been flagged, that basically our account was going to get permanently banned. And then she appealed it and even sent the emails that she'd gotten from Vinted saying, look, you said you made a mistake previously, so that previous no restriction really should be sort of cleared from our account kind of thing. And supposedly they said, oh no, that doesn't count, like what we said before doesn't count even though we made a mistake. Like, they just completely said it didn't really matter, that even though it was them that had made the mistake. And then, so yeah, I can't remember how the story finished. I think she basically, what was it she said? It was really funny. She was like, she says, being banned for being a pro seller or being banned for selling fake items. She was like, it's the only badges I've not earned yet for being banned. So it made me giggle, just our whole palaver of dealing with Vinted. So yeah, so basically that's one thing, as I said, the moral of the story is to keep an eye out for is what you're actually including in your photographs. So even though you're not selling a banned item, if you have a banned item in your photograph and it's quite a prominent, accessory to your main item, that's something that you could potentially get flagged for on Vinted as well. So another type of item where I think people don't really realise they can't sell is handmade items. So I know I mentioned this in the previous video as well, because obviously people make things like crochet items, they might make their own jewellery, things like that, and you're not allowed to sell handmade items on Vinted. However, this also can apply, just say you've bought a handmade item from say a craft fair or something, or even bought it online in a store and it's handmade, that could also flag up on Vinted system as well. So I mean, obviously, I'm assuming it's something to do with safety things, like selling, they haven't, like the items maybe haven't been tested by, how they sort of test things for like fire safety and stuff like that. So I'm assuming it's something to do with that. Don't quote me on that, that's just my kind of theory. However, if you have bought something from, say, a reputable, online store, I would assume those things have been tested. So I would probably say if you want to list something that's not been made by you, that you've bought and it has been handmade, maybe just don't put handmade in it. Don't say that it's handmade. Don't use handmade in the title or in the description or anything, or add it as like a, you can pick the brand, and some people pick handmade as the brand. So I'd probably avoid doing that, even though it's obviously a great selling point for your item. It's something, I'd probably just not risk it, because chances are you will get flagged by Vinted and get your account restricted. So I've just been looking on one of the Facebook groups that kind of pops up on my feed. This is kind of where I get most of these stories from. It's called Vinted UK Sellers. Now, it sort of says that here, which I don't know if, and this is just something that I don't know if people were aware of, is that other sellers or other users of Vinted can actually report you for, say, if they think that you're breaking the rules, or if you're selling prohibited items and things like that. So that's obviously something that could potentially be happening to a lot of people, and it's just something else to watch out for. So so it's not just Vinted that might be flagging on whatever system or whatever bot system they're using. It might actually be other Vinted users who have maybe seen something and are reporting you. I have actually heard quite a lot of people having the theory that people who are in competition with them, like if they've maybe selling similar items, or maybe if they've maybe not accepted an offer from someone and the person's been feeling a little bit disgruntled, they've went and reported them for something that they haven't actually done, just to kind of be annoying. So the one example that I actually seen, and the person actually did put screenshots, I wish I'd taken screenshots of it on the Facebook group, and I'd said that somebody, and I'll tell you how you can actually check this. So you can actually go into Vinted and you can check if somebody's reported you. So this person had done this, had went into the bit of their account, and they could see that the same user, or I think they can see I'm pretty sure you can see who the user is. But anyway, somebody had reported them again and again and again and again, and it actually has the time stamp next to when they got reported. And somebody had reported them basically a minute or even just a few seconds apart. Now, when you report somebody on Vinted, I'm pretty sure you have to either upload picture evidence or you have to like write something out. So it would take you a bit longer than a minute. So it makes me think that whoever's been doing the reporting has either done it using a bot, or they've just written gobbledygook, or they've written something quickly and just went report, just to be really annoying. So this poor person had been reported again and again and again and again, and I think it was something like 20 odd to 30 reports they got on them a minute apart. And it just makes you think, like, surely that would flag up on Vinted as being like, you know, something like suspicious activity, and they wouldn't be taking that seriously. But supposedly they did, and supposedly the person got their account restricted until it was kind of looked into. So that's something else just to be aware of. So I'm just looking at this post where somebody shared how you can actually check and see if your account has been reported. So you go into your settings on your Vinted account, then you go into privacy settings, and then I think you go down to an area where it says manage account data, and then it says you can request a copy of your Vinted account data, and you kind of have to I'm pretty sure you have to download it. And then after you've downloaded this document, that's where it tells you if people have reported you. So this person, Andrea, on the Vinted Facebook page, thanks for sharing that, because that's really useful and it's obviously quite good to know, especially if you have been getting a lot of restrictions recently, or if you've been getting you think somebody's been maybe unfairly reporting you. That's something that you can do to kind of check. There's also say here, and this is just what she's kind of, her theory is, it says there's actual groups of users who report accounts systematically. But why does it happen? Mainly two reasons. One, Vinted tends to favour users who submit reports that turn out to be correct, because obviously they're seen as more trustworthy. So it increases their trust score, and it gives them protection against any future reports. So basically Vinted is more likely to believe them. For this reason, even small and vulnerable accounts are reported, simply so that these users can increase their own trust score. And then serial reporters do not forgive any mistake. If they see something that can be reported, they'll report it. So she's kind of got, I think, the view that there might be like groups that are deliberately out doing this. So I'm actually just back home from dropping James off. So yeah, I was talking about how the person that was reading that post about the whole Vinted people reporting other sellers, other accounts, that person's theory was that there's actually groups out there that are sort of planning, like systematically doing this, which wouldn't surprise me. So just before I left, actually, I was having a little look on that post, just at some of the comments and things, just to see what other people were thinking about that. And there was somebody that actually worryingly put up saying that they've actually seen people on TikTok who do this, who actually go on and look for people to report, and to then obviously with the aim of getting that person's account restricted or banned. Obviously, it didn't really go into detail of saying if it was the reports that they were making were just. So obviously, if you see something that's, you know, definitely fake, or, you know, items that they've got loads of items listed that you know they're not allowed to sell. Understand people reporting those accounts because really they shouldn't be selling them, especially if it's a dangerous item or an unhygienic item, or as I said before, if it's people that are selling lots of fake items. Obviously that's quite frustrating, especially if you're somebody who sells, you know, authentic luxury or high-end items. It's quite frustrating. And I know I have mentioned before in the past about lots of people selling like fake Louis Vuitton and things like that. So understand obviously if people want to report those kind of accounts. But from the sounds of it, it sounds like people are maliciously doing it, like doing it just to be trying to take out competition. I'm pretty sure the person that mentioned the people she'd seen on TikTok, it was because they were in competition with them. It wasn't necessarily because the people they were reporting were doing anything wrong. So that's something that might be a little bit interesting to kind of look further into, to see if there's a little bit more to that, or if it is just some, you know, maybe people are just worrying about nothing. Don't know. But anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think there are people out there that are reporting lots of accounts? Is that why there's been this massive kind of increase in Vinted restricting accounts, banning accounts and things? Is it Vinted themselves using maybe bots that aren't great, or is it because there's been this trend in people, like actually other accounts and other users reporting people? So yeah, let me know what you think. Very interesting. I don't think eBay or the likes of Depop and that have that kind of system in place for reporting. I know you can block people and things on eBay, and I'd imagine on Depop, but I don't know if there's a system for reporting people. So yeah, very interesting. Definitely something to kind of, I suppose, look a bit further into. So anyway, if you found this video interesting or useful, make sure and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos, and I'll see you in our next one. Bye!